am Atef Abdel Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Today, 10 years have passed since Tunisian street vendor Mohammed Bouazizi sparked an Arab Spring when he set himself on fire. That was soon followed by an Egyptian jobless young man, Khalid Said, having his skull crushed by police detectives in the city of Alexandria. Heads of states were toppled in Tunisia, Egypt, and Yemen following popular uprising, but removing individuals did not foster total change. And institutions left by those individuals just took over. While the Arab Spring brought some results in Tunisia, Algeria, and maybe Sudan, it drove Yemen and Syria into civil wars. So where do we stand today? Is it winter, autumn, or will the protest in Lebanon and Iraq and attempts at political solutions in Libya force a spring revival? To discuss these and other questions, from Lebanon, we have Mr. Walid Joumblat, who has first-hand experience in Arab politics. Mr. Joumblat is the president of the Progressive Socialist Party in Lebanon, well known, a long-time politician, leader of the Druze community, and a former member of parliament and a cabinet minister in some governments in Lebanon. Mr. Joumblat, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Is the so-called Arab Spring turning to be the Arab winter, and why?
It's not turning to be an Arab winter. Still, we are at the beginning of the aspiration of the Arab people for freedom, for dignity, for a better life. Just the beginning. But we have big hurdles, big obstacles, because still we have dictatorial regimes unable or unwilling to fulfill, unwilling to move from their post. Plus, you have this dreadful Sunni Shiite sectarian strife between Iraq, in Syria, even in Lebanon. Plus, you have also the question of power sharing between now a dominant power in the Middle East, the Iranians. What else? In Algeria, you have the military still there. In Libya, it's total chaos. But revolutions take time. It's not by miracle that a revolution can happen. It takes time. It will take a long time.
Okay, so there are obstacles as those in Syria, but are the reasons for such failure similar in every country, and why?
No, not similar. In Lebanon, we have an old sectarian confessional regime that, well, at one time, Kemal Joumblat tried to change from inside. He didn't succeed. He didn't succeed because the Arab environment is not, at that time, the Arab environment was against any change. Well, Libya, you have the well-entrenched, Gaddafi. At one time, for 40 years he ruled, and he left nothing. Total chaos with a tribal society. In Egypt, you had two revolutions. One headed by the Muslim Brothers, then the other one headed by the military, and the popular upheaval. It ended up in still a military-controlled country. Military-controlled country. What else? In the Morocco, you have an old, well-established dynasty from centuries. I'm not pessimistic, but all the young people of the Arab world need change. At the same time, any revolution cannot fulfill without also a kind of foreign help. Foreign help. I mean, the French Revolution was helped by foreign outsiders. I think so. If I'm not mistaken. You need also a unified vision. We still are in the Islamic world in a backward vision.
Now, why presidents or leaders of Arabic-speaking nations tend to stay in power for life, almost for life? Lebanon, of course, is an exception.
They came pro-life. It started after the War of Palestine in 1948, the creation of the State of Israel, and they drew their legitimacy, most of them saying that now we are in the struggle to fight to reconquer Palestine from the Israelis. Now, no changes at all. And this led to the Hosni Zaim coup d'etat, then Nasser came, then the Ba'athists came in Syria, then Ba'athists came in Iraq, and that was it. Now the whole spectacle of the Arab world has changed. So we have to rely on the new generation, Lebanon, Palestine, of Tunisia, to be able to fix something new. Plus, you have also the Muslim parties. The Muslim parties, can they generate modernism? Can they generate Muslim modernism? I don't know. This is the big issue.
Some say the reasons for the relative success in Tunisia are the reasons or the reverse side for failure in other countries. For example, in Tunis, the army did not interfere, and the Islamic opposition was more flexible. Do you agree with that, and why?
I do agree. In Tunis, the army was weak. And in Tunis, they had the advantage of also trade unions, for long time established trade unions. Okay, and this is why also the Ranouchi movement, let's say the Muslim Brothers, are anyway modern approach, have a modern approach. Anyway, I said anyway. But now also do not forget that Tunis is one of the countries whereby it exported more than 2,000, terrorists to Syria to fight there with Daesh. Also, this is another aspect which is a little bit frightful.
Now, the late President Mubarak in Egypt used to say, "Me or chaos." That turned out to be true, not just in Egypt, but also in Yemen, Libya, and Syria, as you just said, even though Assad remains in power.
No, I mean, in Egypt, it's not chaos. Well, he stayed 30 years, but it's not chaos. He was replaced by the Muslim Brothers. But knowing the history of Egypt and the long struggle, antagonism between the Egyptian military and the Muslim Brothers, well, the military could not accept the Muslim Brothers in power. This is a long story that goes back to the 20s. The influence of the Muslim Brothers, the role of the Muslim Brothers, and the monarchy, then later on Nasser. In Tunis, in Yemen, it worked at one time. And we had revolution, counter-revolution, but very peacefully. Then it was Yemen was in the crossfire between the intervention of the Saudis, supporting a faction, and you have the Iranians. So it led to a civil war, and we are still there in a civil war. Syria, this minority is there for the last from 1970. 70, it means 50 years. The Assads are in power for the last 50 years, and they have crushed, father and son, all the attempts of the Syrian people to have a dignified life and to have freedom.
Mr. Joumblat, how do you assess the relative success, if we may call it success, now in Sudan and Algeria?
In Sudan, I don't know if it's a success. All these events are happening now in a state whereby, you accept to recognize, to normalize your relations with Israel, you get the blessing of the United States. So this is what happened in Sudan. Internally speaking, they have a long way to. They have a long way through. Sudan is a very complex society, huge economic problems, and also ethnic problems. But the military have accepted reluctantly, I said, to go back. I hope them success. But it's just at the beginning, the beginning. Plus, also, I forgot to say, the West, the whole of the West, even the United States, for decades say, keep the Arab world under the dictatorship. Let them go to hell. Let the people go to hell. We have stability. We have dictators everywhere. We can rest. They were surprised. At the time of the Egyptian revolution, the first one, the West was surprised. But it did not do anything to help, for example, the Syrian people. They failed in helping the Syrian people against the tyrannical regime of the Assad.
Now, lack of help coming from the West or the United States leads me to this question. The international community has failed in resolving the crisis in Syria. What is needed to resolve the crisis in Syria?
What is needed? It was needed at that time to have intervention. Yes, I was claiming for intervention in Syria against the regime, like the West intervened in Libya. But because Obama was at that time in Syria negotiating the nuclear deal, no intervention happened in Syria. Even the peaceful protesters were left to be massacred in the streets of Damascus, in the streets of Aleppo, in the streets of all the countryside of Syria. Millions were exiled, and the West didn't do anything. You asked me about Algeria. Algeria is on the process, just the process of changing. But nothing has changed radically. Nothing has changed. It's just a process, slow process.
Let me turn to Lebanon, your country now. 55% of the Lebanese people live in poverty. How do you assess the situation in Lebanon? What do you suggest as solutions?
There is no solution in Lebanon. It's a long time idea. It's no solution without changing this sectarian regime. But this sectarian regime is very, very powerful. And it has been established by the French, before that by the Ottomans, the millet system. We need the new generation did an excellent upheaval for the last year, but was blocked by the fact that they didn't have a specific plan, how to change the regime, how to separate religion from the state, how to have a secular regime. This is the big issue.
Now, what role does your community, the Druze community, have in Lebanon? How do they contribute to a stable Lebanon?
I'm a small community. So my community's number is less than 200,000 in a country of 4 million. So my job was during the civil war is to try to survive because of the terrible odds at that time and dangers. I participate with others. I'm a Lebanese. I'm trying to find a solution, but for nowadays, everything is just blocked, because also in Lebanon now, if you take the situation, we are a country not free. We are under the control of the Iranian-backed party called Hezbollah. Lebanon is in their hands.
You talked about a sectarian government in Lebanon. My question is, religion or sectarianism generally seem to play a major role in upheavals in almost most of those countries in the Middle East: Lebanon, Yemen, Libya, Syria, Egypt. So what is needed to be done here?
No, in Lebanon, I've told you that, well, the sectarian regime, was opposed by a variety of parties, leftist parties, Arab nationalist parties, at one time during the 60s and the 70s, then was blocked by the civil war. Well, in Egypt, it's the military are there. The military are there, infringing the rule of civil society of having a normal life. But the military are there from the time of Nasser. Well, let's be fair also, the time of Nasser, at that time, it was our golden age for us, for our generation, because he gave us a hope against the West and a kind of dignity against the West. Well, in Yemen, no. In Yemen, they've succeeded peacefully at one time to be able to remove Ali Abdullah Saleh. Then came foreign intervention from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, and it led to division and war, and civil war and open war that's now more than 7 years that's going on. Iraq, they have a civil society. They have a strong civil society, but still it's a divided country. Not able up till now to form its identity because of the big neighbor, the Persians. The Persians the Iranians are in Iraq. They are trying to develop a new identity. They have overthrown the Americans, so overthrown Saddam Hussein, but with no replacement.
Now, so can we conclude that sectarianism and foreign interventions are two reasons why we have such an unstable Middle East?
Sectarianism, foreign intervention, also the role of religion. I mean, the Middle East now, near Middle East, is divided between three big powers: the Turks, the Iranians, and Israel. So this is where the big challenge ahead of us, how to be able to have a genuine Middle East, Arab Middle East, away from these powers. Don't forget that, well, now a major factor inside the Middle East is Israel.
Now, in Lebanon, there are reports that the ambassadors from Britain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates have left Beirut. They are going back to their own countries to protest what they call and protesting the government that they describe as being not independent. Do you think that that would be followed by more ambassadors? This is a first step.
The Arab world now is divided between the pro-American Arab world, and you have assisted lately at the coming of the son-in-law of Mr. Trump, what's his name, Jared Kushner, reconciling the Qataris with the Saudis in a so-called front against the Iranians and the Iranian expansion. Don't underestimate Iranian expansion or Persian expansion, call it whatever you want. It is maybe the fifth time or the sixth time, I don't remember now, going back to read history, that the Persians are on the shores of the Mediterranean, coming from Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. They are very influential in Yemen. So now we have a power conflict, geopolitical power conflict, and at the same time joined by national aspiration from young people to have a better life. So how can you combine both?
Now, you said a few minutes ago that you are not exactly pessimistic, but let me just ask you again, are you optimistic about the future of the Middle East in terms of democracy and civil rule?
I don't see it in the near future. I'm sorry, I don't see it in the near future because of the fact there is no unity between the ranks of the protesters, Lebanon, Syria, and others. I mean, each trend protesting has its own agenda. I don't see it in the near future possible. In the long future, maybe. But yeah, in the near future, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit upset. Let's say pessimistic, realistic.
Mr. Walid Joumblat, concluding this interview, would you like to say anything else, to add anything else?
Look, I'm from a past generation. I'm from a past generation that believed in the revolution of Nasser, of Yasser Arafat in Palestine, okay, of Kamal Joumblat about having a new Lebanon, secular Lebanon. I cannot also impose my past visions to the future. I mean, it's up to we don't have to lose hope. Somebody will come, some people will come, something will emerge in the future for a better Middle East. But also don't forget that we are still under direct or indirect colonization. Plus the fact I'm from a generation that considers that, well, Israel is a foreign body inside this Middle East. We have accepted a two-state solution. Now there is no more any room for a two-state solution, any room. So this is the actual spectacle. We'll see. Somebody else will come and continue the struggle.
Mr. Walid Joumblat, thank you very much. We appreciate your time and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.